Hey guys, let's talk about and take a look at the final setup before the maiden flight of Grogu, my Parrot Disco /Opterra hybrid build, where the internals of the Parrot Disco with the Chuck flight control unit were implanted into the Opterra frame. I couldn't find any other project where that was done successfully, that the Chuck flight controller was working in another frame and doing what it's supposed to do. So yeah, let's hope that this works out fine for this project here, but we will find out very soon. So let's take a look at the final setup after the intro. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for hanging in there. This was a long series of videos leading up to right now. We are before the maiden flight, and it seems that the Chuck flight controller is ready to handle the Opterra frame, keeping it up in the air flying. The motivation was to harvest the Chuck flight control unit in a more efficient, bigger airframe to build a really nice hyper long range drone, since the flight Chuck control unit can be hacked to fly over 4G to make it virtually unlimited range capable. I made that series because there were a lot of obstacles and little challenges we had to overcome to get it ready to fly, and if it works in the end, I always wanted to have a documentation of the entire process to show and share that experience. Here we have our Insta360 camera, which I will mount on the right edge of the wing, getting one angle from that direction. Then we have a run cam 4K sitting on the left wing close to the fuselage, and we have the nose camera from the Chuck flight control unit. On top of all that, I will have a GoPro mounted to my Tango 2 and getting a few shots from that perspective how the aircraft is hanging in the air. And if it doesn't hang in the air, if something goes wrong, at least we have a few cool shots to share here. Please keep your fingers crossed that that is not the case and that it will fly. It would be great if this is a series with a happy end, and maybe some of you want to rebuild the whole project if everything turns out to be fine and it flies. Since our Insta360 is sitting very far out on the right, the little weight it has is still enough to require some balance weights on the left wingtip to have an even distribution of that weight across the aircraft frame. So let's see how much the takeoff weight of our little chunker here really is. So it's coming in at 2,290-ish grams, and that is quite a substantial weight, but I think we can handle that. The powertrain is producing enough thrust, and that should be sufficient. The only concern is I want to throw it and then throttle up. I don't want to throttle up and then let it glide or throw because it's a pusher and it's a quite big propeller with 11x6. So yeah, reducing the risk that it's cutting through my hand would be appreciated, and I'm doing it by planning of throwing it first, then throttling up, and I hope that delay will be fine to keep it flying. However, I'm throwing with my right hand and the throttle is on the left stick, so I can do that, but controlling the aircraft roll and pitch, I have to do it with the right stick. I don't have my hands free, and since I will fly alone, I will have to do everything in one kind of like process. I don't have another person who could throw it for me. So that is another challenge on top of all the other challenges, but yeah, who doesn't like a challenge, right? We will get it up in the air. I'm pretty confident and will do everything that this is really happening tomorrow then in the maiden flight. Now let's check one more time how much amp actually is really drawn by the new powertrain and the final setup which we will fly. When sitting in idle mode, just the fan spinning from the chuck and no real servo inputs, we are staying under 1 amp. And when we are looking at putting some steering input, having the fan spinning from the Chuck flight control unit and the servo motors doing something with the ailerons, we are going up to around 1 amp. So 1 amp is our baseline without any engine running. Today now we are testing one last time the different propellers we have available for the first flight, for the maiden, how much amp they're drawing and how much the thrust they're producing actually really is. I don't measure the thrust scientifically here, but I'm holding the aircraft and I throttle up, and then I really can feel, because of experience and what I have then pushing at me, how much thrust I really have from that propeller. So first we are really starting with the 11x6, the initial suggested propeller for the maiden flight, and how much that is drawing at full throttle. So we are maxing out at full throttle at 20 amps. When talking here about full throttle, I'm talking about the TBS Tango programming I was setting to cap the full throttle to 75% to stay under 20 amps of energy drawn by the powertrain. That is the main reason why I did the manual mod before the maiden flight, since I want to control the amps drawn by the powertrain. If I would take off with the Sky controller, it will throttle up to 100% and most likely draw way more amps from that powertrain and overstressing the Chuck flight control unit. So that is why we are limiting it to 25%. Basically from 0 to 25% we have no engine, and then it's naturally capped at the upper half to another 25%, maxing then out at about 75% at the throttle curve, and the last 25% is not activated for a stick input. So here we are making a little test now to show that basically the propeller is the only determining part how much amp is drawn. We are running the engine without a prop, and it shows very transparently that there is no amp basically drawn by an engine running without a prop. So choosing a propeller wisely which produces enough thrust but not overstressing the ESC, drawing too much amp, is the crucial part basically in this build or any other build for that matter. So now that we established that the propeller is the determining factor how much air is shuffled around producing thrust and how much amp that pushing air around is producing and putting stress on the ESC, we want to test another propeller we just got in, and that is a 10x6 instead of the 11x6. Also a carbon bladed propeller, same rigidity and same weight basically. But I thought it's worth to take a look before the maiden flight, since it's now available, how it is doing and how much amp it draws. Just as a quick reminder, the Parrot Disco original setup was drawing 15 amps when at full throttle with the original engine. And now in the Opterra frame with a new engine and a new setup at full throttle, which I kept to 75% basically in the manual mode, the powertrain is drawing 20 amps. And that might be close to what the ASC of the Chuck flight control unit can handle before we are frying it. So we want to limit that and stay close to what we have now and not risking to fry our electronics. And my expectation is that that propeller is drawing less amps and maybe producing also a little bit less thrust, but not substantially less. So we're now running it and throttling up, full throttle. We see that it's maxing out at 24 amps, and that is 4 to 5 amps over the 11x6. And on top of that, the thrust I feel coming from that propeller is substantially, not just a bit, but substantially less than what the 11x6 is producing. Therefore, it's basically a no-brainer that we are going with the 11x6 producing more thrust, drawing at the same time less amps from the ESC of the Chuck flight control unit. And now we are testing the 11x6 back to back to the 10x6. So when throttling up, we can feel that the 11x6 is really pushing at the same throttle input way more than the 10x6. And on top of all of that, the 11x6 pushing more, shuffling more air is maxing out under 20 amps. And that is basically the confirmation that this is the more efficient, better setup for us, which we will fly. Thanks guys for hanging in there with me. This is really a very long project I was planning from very early this year, and now many of you, I promised I will do everything possible to try to get it up in the air before the year ends. And we will have this answer before the year ends. Either it's crashing and burning or it flies, but we will have an answer. And I'm really excited for this first flight because the hopes are high that it will be successful. Again guys, thanks for all your support. I got a lot of subscribers because of that project. Keep subscribing to this channel. That really helps out a lot to do more of these interesting, exciting projects in the future. Also reviews and talks about tech, Tesla, Apple. That will be possible, and you can always ask me anything in the comments. I will listen to that. So for now, as always, thanks guys for watching. Have a great rest of the day. Stay safe and see you in the next one.